Eat. Howdy, everybody. How are we doing today? So this is episode 2 of Rabbit Trails. I just had this thought today, but I might do like an alphabet thing, and that's going to be a problem. Yeah, I might do a alphabet thing where today is A for attitude, and next time might be B for bitching or something like that. That sounds appropriate. So, anyhow, all right. So, I will kind of warm up the chat here to get started, and then I was going to do something about that, though. Hi from all the way over here. Can everybody hear me? Hopefully everybody can hear me. Normally Angel's running the tech stuff, and I am not, so afternoon. I go off camera for a second, and had some tea steeping, and instead of tea bags, I've got the actual, like, tea leaves and stuff, so my wife got me this fancy tea cup or whatever. It's got like a better strainer than I've had. And so I'm giving that a shot today. Have some raspberry mint tea that I like quite a bit. And I was going to get the camera closer, but I forgot, like usual. So, all right. So, to kind of expand on, I'm just going to get right into it. To kind of expand on some of the things that I was talking about last time, I got this idea of attitude from a few friends and from a show I started watching. So I've got this friend that posts motivational things all the time. So he finds memes every day and posts several of them every day. Some of them are positive, uplifting things. Other things are also positive, but they kind of teach you positivity through growth, which is sometimes feels negative at the time. We have some, I know, thanks puppies. We have some friends that are professional bodybuilders, and they do a lot of things that are not inherently immediately positive. They do a lot of things that they don't want to do, that are tough, that are whatever else, but they are meant to bring about a positive outcome. It seems like something that I've learned that's taken a while to learn is that most situations that you find yourself in, where jobs, groups, whatever else, where they have this big time positivity vibe, but we always have to be positive and everything's positive, those end up being some of the most toxic places, because they're overwhelming, they're going overboard on the positivity aspect to kind of gaslight you into keeping your mouth shut, or God, I had it a second ago. They either want to gaslight you into just keeping your mouth shut, or overlooking things in favor of positivity for the team. But there are a lot of things that, again, aren't. So they don't want criticism. They don't want complaints. They don't want any real anything. They just want to cover it up and pretend it doesn't exist. But as most people find out, if you want to get stronger, oftentimes you have to work yourself to weakness. Again, my bodybuilder friends, they'll lift until they're, like I had a buddy that I used to bowl with, and he'd come to league some nights and say, hey, I'm not real stable. It was leg day today, and so he's like, I'm a little wobbly. And so that would seem, it's like, why would you want to work yourself? Some people look at that and say, well, why would you want to work yourself to the point where you can barely stand up? But that is a negative or not necessarily a negative, but it's something that's at face value a negative to bring about a positive result. If you are being, and I talk about this a lot because I am, again, I'm a fairly negative, critical, troubleshooting type person, but it's not to be just a bitter, miserable, negative person. I want everything to be better so that we have a positive outcome, because I don't think anybody really likes being negative. Some people do find some sort of weird, twisted happiness in just nonstop complaining about things all the time. But I don't think that they're ever really happy. I mean, they do want things to be good, and then there are some people who are just so used to having negative things happen to them that they just want to wallow in a little bit. They don't want somebody to come by and cheer them up because they're being mopey, they're being pissy, they want to enjoy being mad. And so they ignore that, or they ignore any attempts at positivity or whatever else because they just want to sulk for a while. But that doesn't do any good for you. It doesn't do any good to anybody around you. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about, or that's kind of the direction that I'm going to go. And the reason for that being is that there is just, thank you, buddy. Hi, I know. There's no, you're dirty. Hi. Oh, you just wanted to be on camera, don't you? You can go lay down somewhere. No, that's my tea. Thank you. Storm Dog wants to say hi. Storm Dog is always happy. And he gets his happiness through negativity. Putting holes in my yard. Yep. Super happy about that, aren't you, buddy? Thank you. With your dirt. Thank you. Why don't you go lay down? Hi, Pig. All right. So, I'm going to answer a question here. My son's also left-handed. I keep preaching to him ASIMs are not really needed on house shots. Agree or disagree? Yeah, I mean, I would love to use ASIMs, and if I do use ASIMs, it's like UC3, I've got an Attention Black Pearl that's really smooth, something like a Parallax, just really, really crazy smooth stuff. Most of the time, they're also a little bit too early, a little bit too strong. They can open up your angles a little bit too much. Sometimes you're forced to have your angles open up, and so then you need something that's going to be able to handle that. But the vast majority of the time, I threw a Fate all night last night. I love the Revenant. I don't throw the IQ Tour as much anymore because it's not quite strong enough, or I'm finding myself liking higher RG, higher diff balls here recently because I don't have to fight him to get down the lane, and that I don't have to fight him to turn. I used to fight shape, but now that I'm getting used to the shape on the left side of the lane, I'm actually enjoying using that. So, yeah, if bowling doesn't work out for you, you might have some success as a stand-up comic. The problem is I would have to write everything down exactly the way that I wanted to say it, and then I would have to read it off because there's zero way that I'm going to remember. Like I watched some of the stand-ups. Chris Rock's got a pretty good one that's on Netflix, and then Burt Kreischer's got a new one that's on Netflix. And they're both pretty good, but I can't imagine going for like a solid hour and remembering everything I'm supposed to say. Like I'd have to have a teleprompter right in front of me and read it word for word. Like I'm Ron Burgundy. I am seriously Ron Burgundy. There's been several times where I've written reviews for stuff and I've ended up, oh crap, there's something I forgot to do on my phone. I don't know if I can do it now. I forgot to, let me see if I can do it from my watch. Do not disturb. Sweet. Maybe that won't work on my phone, but we'll see. We might have a Rabbit Trails 2.1, 2.2, 2.5, whatever. Silence notifications on my phone. I've got to figure out a different thing for this so that I'm not streaming on my phone. Anyway, yeah, I would have to have everything written down for me. And I would have to be able to read it word for word because I would want to say it exactly the way I want to say it. Picture quality is rough. Yeah, I know. That's because it's on my phone. Hopefully my phone is hooked up to the Wi-Fi though. Normally I turn Wi-Fi off when I'm at, thank you. Normally I turn Wi-Fi off while I'm at Royal Crest because it never works there, and so I probably forgot to turn Wi-Fi back on. So there's a lot of things I forgot to do. Anyway, you're not really, as long as you can hear me, I think that's all that matters. Nobody watches me for my pretty face. Thanks, buddy. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, James had a huge couple sets. Hey, thank you, sir. No, thank you. Go lay down. Go lay down. Go on. Go lay down. Go on. Go lay down. You're not going back out. It's not happening. No. No, thank you, sir. So yeah, it's if I can take days and days to write down material and then say it all exactly the way that I want to say it with, no crowd, no voice, get it out exactly the way I wanted to get it out. It would have to be like a YouTube stand-up thing with no audience, and that way I can just read everything off and I can edit things the way I want them edited, and yeah. Yeah, it's just like having a YouTube channel. You get some positive people with great comments, and you get people that are just keyboard warriors and bash people negative comments, and that's it too. But there's a yin and a yang to that. If I put something out there for somebody to watch, inherently some people are going to love it and some people are going to have a problem with it. But you can't just kind of plow on ahead and not listen to the comments, because the comments might be harshly stated, but they might be accurate. So you've got to, again, there's a guy that I had an argument with a couple weeks ago, and we hashed it out, and I was partly correct, he was partly correct, but ultimately speaking, it was a kind of a difference in perspective. Or sometimes, like, there was somebody else a couple of years ago that just really rocked my world, or just reamed me, and instead of throwing it right back in his face or getting pissed off, I stopped and said, you don't understand. And then I explained things to him. He's like, oh, okay, well, I thought this, that's not the case, then yeah, sorry, whatever else. And as far as I know, he still watches, comments every once in a while, and everything's fine. But I could have told him to, piss off and blocked him and whatever else. But sometimes there is a yin and yang. Now, for the bowling industry is super negative because, and I'm sure that this exists other places, but I think once you get to a certain level of involvement, you don't necessarily have to get to a certain level of skill, you just have to get to a certain level of involvement with something, and you're going to find people that are passionate about it one way or the other. And a lot of the times people have misdirected passion, or they have passion without knowledge, passion without intelligence, passion without direction, passion without purpose, whatever else. So you have people that are just really into something, and they just are looking from their own perspective, and they want to have things the way that they want them. They want to enjoy it their way. They want to whatever else. And somebody else, and if you don't enjoy it the same way that they do, or whatever else, they just don't want to have anything to do with you. They want it their way, and that's just kind of that. The problem is that you have a lot of people that are negative because they're grouchy and they just look for ways to complain about things. On the other side, you have people that complain that like bowling the way that it used to be, and they want bowling to continue to thrive however it has to be, just because they may have, there's plenty of people that grew up on, wood lanes, urethane balls, plastic balls, whatever else. They don't mind reactive balls. They don't mind two-handers. They don't mind whatever else. They're just sad to see bowling going downhill. And some of it, you have other people that are like, well, all this crap is ruining the game, and so all the scores and all the this and all that, and there's a bunch of different factors that go into it. But again, there's some people that complain to be negative. It's not the way that they grew up with it anymore. It's not what they enjoy anymore, and so they would just as soon see it burn down as get better. There's some people that have a problem or are in a situation that's negative, and after they either leave that situation or remove themselves from that situation, Or while they're still in it, they just want to see it burn to the ground to prove to them that they're right. They just want to see they're unhappy that things are not going poorly because something affected them some direction and something or in some way, and so they don't want to see it succeed. I think there's a lot of people that don't want to see bowling succeed with house shots, reactive balls, and two-handers. There's some people that don't want to see any popularity. They don't want to see a Belmo or a Kyle Troop or anything else. They don't want to see it become more popular. They don't want to see it get better in kind of a bastardized way, according to them. And so they actually want to see it burn down. They just want to see it all go up in flames. Another point here is negativity gets contagious too. It's like, yeah, it's a whole lot easier. For some reason, it's a whole lot more fun to complain and have little, I have group messages with some people in the bowling world, and we don't really say a lot unless there's something to whine or complain about. But nobody really has kind of group messages to support each other or encourage each other or to say, hey, I did this or hey, I did that, because that looks a lot of the time like you're being a brown noser or that you're just one of these, like my dad, he's kind of a little old and grouchy right now, or now, but he's put up with a bunch. I mean, he's the most resilient person on the planet that I know. I mean, everybody I meet that says they know, it's like, oh yeah, I know your dad. He's a real nice guy. And that's literally how everybody says it. Oh yeah, I know him. He's a real nice guy. That's how everybody says it. To the point where I could just say it with them while it's coming out of their mouth. My mom used to call him Pollyanna, actually. But you never really you just assume that if somebody is bubbly and happy and whatever else, it's like, well, okay, so you're either lucky or you've got some kind of situation that is making you positive, or how can you be so happy and how whatever else. Well, there's some people that choose to be happy no matter what happens. And I don't quite understand that, because I'm the type of person, again, I'm a troubleshooter. So I want to focus on the negative stuff to get rid of it, and so that everything is smooth sailing. I don't need positivity. Like, I don't need happiness. I just don't want negativity. I don't want unhappiness. If everything is just smooth sailing, I'm kind of one of those plan for the worst or expect the worst type of people, so that it doesn't all go to hell, then I'm fine. If there are problems, it's like, oh, well, I expected this. I'm prepared for this. I can handle this. This is no problem. So even sometimes when some things are going negative, or when, I'll huff and puff about it, but I know what to do. I know how to handle it. I'm prepared. And so it doesn't affect me as much as it would somebody else. And there's some things that I fall to pieces over, but it's because it's like, okay, sure, I prepared for this. I expect back then, but does it have to be so constant? Does it have to be like an everyday thing? Can I get a ray of sunshine here every once in a while? A ginger wanting sunshine. That's hilarious. But yeah, it's a whole lot easier to. Generally, you think when people are happy or they're positive, then there's things that they're also ignorant. Ignorance is bliss. If you are too involved, if you know too much, it's hard to be happy, because when you see the kind of behind the scenes things, it's about like, when families go to Disney World or whatever, and everything's all rainbows and sunshine, until you are someone that works at Disney World, and then it has a whole kind of different twist to it. You okay there, buddy? I know, it's nice outside and the puppers want to be outside, but I don't want them outside. So, I don't really understand, again, being just generally happy if there are not things to be happy about. And it's one of those things that I genuinely don't understand. Like, it's like, well, I don't want to fake being happy. I don't want to be one of these, because again, you get into some of these situations and you get in some of these jobs or groups or whatever else where people are just kind of, oh, all about positivity and whatever, and they're not really pro positivity, they're just pro ignoring the problems. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to ignore the problems and I'm not going to fake it. So if there's not something to be happy about, how can I be happy? It's a thing that does not click, doesn't work in my head. But, there's a different perspective. Like I was talking to, I'm frustrated being left-handed, for example, now with bowling. I'm frustrated being on the left side of the lane because on the right side, it always kind of feels like if you don't do well, it's more your fault because you can move all over the place. There's all kinds of different people doing different things. You can get better on the fresh, you can get better in transition, or maybe the lanes at some point will be favorable to your A game. And on the left side of the lane, if they start off tough, they're going to get easier for the right side, provided they break them down correctly. But they're also going to start easier on the right side anyway, because there's a track. And I've talked about this, I won't belabor that point. But there's sometimes on the left side where as accurate as you can be, as good as you can be, there's some days it's just not going to be there. There's some days where it's going to be there in abundance, and you're going to have all the righties mad at you. And then there's going to be other days where you're just a complete non-factor. And so the lack of consistency, it feels more like gambling on the left side. Like you just show up to tournaments and you just put money in there and hope it hits. You hope you've got something. And other times you can show up and no matter what you do, you're just not going to be in contention. It's just not going to be there. The house is either not a lefty house or... Thank you, buddy. Thank you. That was an antler, by the way. Thanks, buddy. Now you lost it. Great job. That's unfortunate. Timmy, you are a ray of sunshine. You are a ray of sunshine. And between you and Jim Cripps and some other people, you're going to eventually make me positive. I just know it. I'm resisting. But the whole... I know, buddy. You lost it. Move on. Thank you. I'm not getting it for you. Go get another one. You have more antlers. There are more antlers. I know. Thank you, sir. But I don't like being left-handed because it's just like, okay, well, I can show up, and if I do well, it's because I had a favorable look. And if I don't do well, it's probably because I was half shut out. There's this guy named Samuel Anderson. For those of you, he's getting out on tour now, and he's left-handed. If you don't follow him on Instagram, because he's got a bunch of really good stuff. And I got to talk to him at the PBA tournament in Wichita here a couple weeks ago. Oh, Bob, thanks, Bob. Appreciate it. $5 from Bob. Toast to Bob. I'm here because you keep it real, never stop, never stopping. Yeah. And that's the ultimate goal. That's kind of what we're talking about here today. But I sat down with him. He was kind of following. He's pretty good friends with Chris Prather, and so he was following him around, keeping notes on stuff, talking to him about stuff. And I talked to him a little bit, and I was telling him a little bit about how I liked watching him, because he's in the middle of he likes to roll the ball, and he's got a little slower speed, and sometimes he doesn't necessarily have slower speed. He likes to slow roll the ball. He likes to hook the ball, and that doesn't really work that well on the left side, especially when you're doing it professionally. I mean, if you're on a house shot, then sure, play third, fourth arrow as a lefty. It's probably gonna be okay. But on the left side, you've got to play the rail. You've got to figure out how to play them straight. You've got to figure out how to use surface, whatever else. And so he's been big into the Bowl U thing that Rick Benoit has had, and I've known Rick for a long time, and so Bowl U is another really good resource to get into if you want to really get better at bowling. That's another no nonsense, no frills, no lies, no deceit, no whatever else. It's one of those negatives become positives type of things. It's like, well, do you want to just go score on house shots and feel good about yourself, or do you want to actually put some real work in and become a good bowler? Get the knowledge, get the skills, whatever else. And so he's he's been really great to watch as he's become better through a lot of the training tools and whatever else, and he shows the good, the bad, and the ugly. That's kind of why I got hooked on Verity Crawley to begin with, because she always shows everything. If she goes to a sweeper, she'll put all her. I bowled a 6-game sweeper. I went 170, 190, 220, 212. 170, 190. It wasn't my best outing. This is what went wrong, blah, blah, blah. And there's a lot of people that don't want to put that on social media because as staffers, we're trained that everything has to be positive. We can't ever have any negativity, and no negativity, no whatever else. We can't complain about anything. If you don't like this ball, keep it to yourself, or whatever else. They don't tell us that. Storm has told me before, it's like, well, don't be afraid to say if you don't like a ball, because not everybody likes everything. You got to be real to some certain extent. But when you don't say super positive or glowing things, you get the general idea that it's not received well. So it depends on what you say and how you say it. Exactly. But to go back to Samuel Anderson, I was kind of venting to him about the lefty thing. I'm like, yeah, I like watching your stuff because it's teaching me a bunch. I'm learning a bunch. I'm trying to learn to accept the left side, but I just don't like it. I'm not sure that I'm ever going to be okay with it, that I'm ever going to like it, because every single time I go to a tournament and I am just blocked out from the start, or I don't have any kind of a look. And sometimes even if you're right-handed, it does take a few games to find the line, find the look, find the ball. And I've had some situations like that where we've been in an 8-game sweeper. I've sworn that I'm blocked out for like the first 3 games, and then I kind of find something, and then I'm like, oh, okay, well, I can do that. And then I can learn from this. But sometimes it's just hard to think, it's like, okay, well, this is another couple $100 learning experience. It's nice, and that's what has to happen in the bowling world. Bowling is very expensive on the experience side, if not necessarily anything else. But Rabbit Trails, this is aptly named because I'm taking 15 minutes to get to the point. But he said something really profound. And I like to think of I like to play devil's advocate. I like to think about something from several different perspectives, because if I think something or believe something, I want it to be a conclusion. I don't want to have opinions, because most people rely on opinions. Well, they feel this way, and so this must be true. And it's like, that's not how that works. If I have an opinion or a conclusion, I want to challenge it. I want to actively challenge it, because I don't want to be one of these people having a certain perspective or a point of view that is incorrect. However, sometimes I will have, and the other thing is too, is opinions are harder to change. If you just have conclusions and you get new information that challenges that or that turns that on its head, then you can say, oh, well, that wasn't right. So now using this new information, okay, this is right. So people with opinions tend to speak more passionately about something, and it's harder to kind of change, flip sides, or however you want to say it, if you've been passionately in support of an opinion. Whereas with a conclusion, if I find out that I'm wrong about something or don't have the proper perspective, I might defend it to the extent of, hey, I've really vetted this idea so far. It's not an opinion, this is a conclusion. I will defend it. But if somebody comes at me and says, well, hey, well, this is either how it looks, or this is how it is, or this is some information you may not know, then it's kind of like, oh, well, okay. It's a lot less embarrassing to kind of change your tune or change your opinion than it is to just alter or adjust a conclusion. You know, if you have a more of a mathematic formula and you produce an answer that turns out to be wrong, it's like, well, the formula's wrong. It's not that the conclusion was correct based on the existing formula. It's just your formula was wrong. Once you plug in the things, oh damn, Two-Handed Beast, welcome to 10 Frames Are for Quakers. What's up, man? Appreciate that. There's a bunch of good stuff on the other side of the wall, and if you need help linking to Discord, let me know. So, to continue getting to my point, what he said was, he's like, well, you know, when you're thinking about, he's like, I don't see being left-handed as a negative, because he's like, yeah, there's sometimes I'm going to show up and I'm going to have the look and it's going to be great, and there's other times where it's just going to be experience. It's just going to be however many games of experience. But he's like, somebody told, it might have been Rick with the Bull U stuff, but he said that there's a couple ways to win. It's either by being better than everybody else, which is really difficult, or by being unique. And that clicked for me, and I thought, well, that's interesting. That's interesting, because I've always thought, well, I want to be right-handed so that I feel like I can compete. I feel like with my knowledge base of covers, cores, layouts, my eye for ball reaction, whatever else, I feel like even if I didn't have the physical game over there, I felt like my mental game gave me an edge. I would be able to see moves, see adjustments, whatever else that other people with maybe better physical games might struggle with. But if they're used to their physical games kind of carrying them, or kind of relying on their physical games, not having that great of one has taught me a lot more. And so I'm like, well, I just want a fair opportunity to compete. And if I get beat on the right side, then I'm just not good enough. But at least I had the opportunity. Whereas on the left side, sometimes I show up and I'm like, well, okay, well, this isn't going to happen today. Because if it's rough on the left side, it's not going to open up, it's not going to transition, it's not going to change, and all the lanes are still going to be different. So I'm going to be on the fresh and on every single pair, and by the time I actually kind of start transitioning the lane or breaking it in, the one that I'm on, or the pair that I'm on, I move to a different one, and we start all over again with whatever the hell characteristics those lanes have. But I was thinking about it from the angle of competing. Now, if you think about it from the angle of winning, you know, a career in bowling or golf or whatever it is a series of, because bowling, titles. It's titles. You don't get points to the Hall of Fame for top 5 finishes, top 10 finishes, how many times you were the player of the year. It is titles. So you win or it doesn't matter, basically. So to win, you need to be the best, or you need to be unique. If you look at a career like, say, Norm Duke, it's got 40 titles. How many tournaments has he bowled over 40 years? I mean, what is his win percentage? So you think about it as a career is a collection of diamonds in the rough, so to speak. A career is just a collection of better weeks than other people. Or a Hall of Fame career is a collection of better weeks than other people. And if you think about, I mean, because he's entered hundreds of tournaments. I don't know, probably 1,000 PBA tournaments, because they used to have him 30 a year, and he's been bowling for 40 years, so you can do the math on that pretty quick. So he's probably bowled, maybe not 1,000 tournaments, but several hundred. And he's won 40 of them, which is pretty good if you look at the numbers. And consider, winning percentages in a singles sport, basically. So So I've thought about that. I'm like, well, being left-handed actually gives me a better chance to win than being right-handed. Being right-handed gives you a chance to compete. Being left-handed gives you a chance to win, because when you have those certain days where the right either starts off good and then just devolves into anarchy, the left side is probably, if it starts out good, it's going to stay good. So if you have a look and the righties have it rough, your uniqueness of being left-handed might be what does the trick. And I think that if you look at there's several lefties, Earl Anthony, Parker Bone, just the name a couple off the top of my head, and some up and comers. Jacob Buttriff's going to get there eventually, and Jesper Svensson, some people like that. You can look at it however you want to look at it. You can say it's unfair, you can say it's this or that, but there are things that righties do that are unique from other righties. Like Norm was better at playing the rail than anybody. Like Norm and Liz Johnson, better at playing the rail than anybody. And so despite them being on the right side, which people technically term as more fair or something, which, some of the two-handers that can throw the backup ball now, Anthony Simonson, well, that's looked at as skill. But if you naturally throw it left-handed, then that's unfair because you're on the left side and nobody else is over there and you have an advantage. Yeah, Wesley Lowe. So that really kind of tweaked my perspective a little bit. And I'm like, well, it's one of those things where it's never going to get better per se. Everybody's always going to bag on lefties. Everybody's going to always think it's easier over there or whatever else. It's not. But it offers a different kind of uniqueness. And so it really tweaked my thinking to where even if I'm having a rough time now or like a bad tournament, I'm still frustrated about it. I'm still not happy I'm still working on a lot of physical things. I'm in the building phase right now instead of the just kind of, it's really interesting because I was scoring better when I was in the just keep it in play, don't hurt yourself, play it safe, keep it in play phase. And now that I'm in the actual trying to execute, trying to make shots, whatever else, now it's a little tricky because I'm still working on the fine motor controls, I'm still working out my angles, and as my game progresses, I'm also adjusting to those things too. And so I'm trying to grow two different ways at the same time, plus having kind of my knowledge base from the right side, and having things be different on the left side than they are on the right. I'm having conflating, sometimes I get righty brain. It's a mess right now, but I'm starting to see some light at the end of the tunnel. I'm starting to, Scroggins. Yeah, party at Scroggy's. Yeah. Packy and Kevin. Hey, it's Friday afternoon. Aren't there any bridges out there to inspect? Yeah, haha. When I was in bridge inspection, we worked 4 10s, and now that I'm in bridge management, I work 4 9s and a 4. So joining you with my tea. So that gave me the perspective shift from him just saying that. Gave me some positivity, gave me extra positivity or extra optimism where I hadn't had it before. And so while I'm still, like this last weekend in Southwest was another mess because the scores are outrageous there. And we were just every single year, it's hooking and they're wide open. And then I get down there and it's super tight down lane and impossible to get the pins down. And that's exactly how the whole weekend played out for me. It didn't, for our squad, We had a bunch of people. We had, Spencer Robarge bowled in our group. Shannon Sellens bowled with the women's teams, and we had some other just local big shots, big names: Casey Murphy, Austin Bowles, Ryan Burks, James Niffen Jr., Stephen Keeler, who got his first 300 game since his 70th. But and North Rock in Wichita is notorious for being rough on the low end of the house and easier to score on the high end of the house. And that's how it was for a lot of people. There was some scores down on the low end, but by and large, we got up to the high end for doubles and singles. We bowled 2 team sets on the low end, and some people there was a couple 300s out of the group, and there was a couple decent sets. But we got up to the high end, and then everybody went nuts. And here, me and the other lefty we got squeezed and tapped all day on the low end, and we got squeezed and tapped all day on the high end. And so it's one of those things where it's just like, you know what, this is, I don't know. Spencer scores there. Everybody, all the lefties that were scoring there, high speed bunch of revs. And, I don't have that, and the other lefty didn't have it, and so that's why the other 2 lefties, Brandon Carlson and Spencer Robarge, went nuts, and we didn't really have anything to show for it because we just don't have those types of games. But anyway, yeah, Kniffen. So, however, I did get a lot of practice in. I got a lot of practice in my 7 pins. It didn't really help last night, but it need to re-slug my spare ball. I also got an ice too. The mix is tricky on me. It's interesting. It goes a lot straighter, I think, on the right side than it does. It hooks more on the right side, but it bends more on the left side. So I got an ice that I think I'm going to drill up, and it was a little warm here, a little warmer here yesterday, or humid or something, so I just couldn't get my hand out of the ball. But I got a lot of practice in on 7 pins. I got a lot of practice in on my general game, and it did feel a whole lot more rewarding when I actually made a good shot, and good things happen most of the time. Buddy, chill pill. Huskerific. I know, buddy. I know. You can go lay down. So, the good with the bad. I learned some things. It sucks for everything to always be a learning experience. And I didn't want to start all over again at the age of 40. But, if I'd have kept going right-handed, it would have continued to deteriorate. And I drilled a couple balls to try it again here recently. And, I had that exotic gem review where I reviewed it both hands. And I drilled an infinite. And I thought, okay, well, this is going to be okay. And then I got to practicing a little bit more. And I'm like, this just devolved quickly. At least I got the video done. But it gave me some false hope. But I'm like, okay, well, sitting here thinking about it, sometimes you take a step back or you have a current or an immediate negative to end up at a positive. And so I'm looking ahead to, by the time I'm 50, they always have a lot of over-under tournaments. I've got, another 8 years to kind of work towards that. I can get into some of the senior stuff. And by that time, maybe I have it figured out. And you're thinking 8 years is a long time. But, maybe in 8 years, if I do something I don't necessarily want to do now, I fight through the negatives, maybe I end up in a better place 8 years from now than I would have if I'd have just kind of stubbornly stuck with the righty thing and continued to fight that, because I just like that side of the lane better. And that's the unfortunate thing about making decisions, is you never really know whether they're going to be positive ones or whether they're going to be negative ones. But as long as you keep the focus on learning something with the intent to get better, then nothing's really that negative. That's tricky for me because I'm used to engineering things to be positive or to be this or that. And that's what's frustrated me so much about the bowling industry in general, is that I'm one of the most naive people on the planet. I think that, again, if you just do the right thing, if you be honest, if you work hard, things are going to work out for you. And it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. You have to have a mixture of that and also advocating for yourself and taking risks, and also making sure that you don't want something that bad. Because in all situations, when you really, really want something, you tend to just say, okay, take whatever, I'll do whatever to get in this situation, and then you regret it later. Or it doesn't end up being that big of a situation, and that's how people like myself get taken advantage of. Because if I think, I think back to when I started getting into the bowling industry through the pro shop in the first place. It's Saturdays and bad pay, and I think, okay, well, I'm paying my dues. I'm learning something. I'm start from the bottom, work my way up, type of thing, and not to get into politics or anything political, but when you talk about there's been several debates over the gender pay gap and stuff like that, but somebody, I'm not going to mention the name, if you happen to know, fine, but I'm leaving politics out of this. Somebody said, well, it has more to do with the agreeable, or how agreeable people are. More agreeable people to get taken advantage of, they tend to get paid less because they're not the type of, they're non-confrontational, they don't like fighting, they don't like haggling, they don't like whatever else. I'm the type of person that will take less or pay more just so that I don't have to deal with the nonsense. I don't like haggling, I don't like confrontation, I don't like, I'm the type of person that wants it to work out for everybody. You scratch my back, I'll scratch your back. I'm going to make sure that we both get a great deal out of this. But as a show of good faith, I will normally be the one to put myself out there first. I will say, hey, if I know that you might be worried about this or whatever else, I'll go on ahead and I'll put myself out there first, just as a show of good faith, as a show of I'm going to work with you, or that I'm being straight with you, or that whatever else. And that has screwed me more times than it's helped me out. I had in bowling ball deals on the internet way back when, I would always send the ball before I got payment, or I would send the payment before they sent the ball. It was just saying, hey, I'm square, I'm on the up and up here, and I would get screwed over repeatedly. And I have experienced, gender pay gap, whether you believe in it, don't believe in it, I don't care. But I experienced, because of my experience as a more agreeable person, I can see the argument against it. Women are typically more agreeable, they're nicer, they're less, they tend less, again, generally speaking, God, I don't want to make this political. Generally speaking, they're nicer, they're more agreeable. They want things to work out for people. They're like I am. I'm more apt to just say, you know what? Sure, I'll take a lower salary, and I will just work hard. I will prove myself to you, and then I will be rewarded for it, like an idiot, because that never happens. So I have found that the times that I have been taken advantage of, or the times that I think that I've been taken advantage of, thank you, buddy. The things that have made me bitter, and the things that have made me bitter or pissy or whatever else, have been me offering too much, me giving too much, me putting myself out there too much. And so, there's another thing that, they would call that, well, it's like, well, those people took advantage of you, or don't victim blame. Those people took advantage of you, those people did this, which, sure. But I was the one that put myself, I was the one that said yes to that salary. I was the one that said yes to that trade. I was the one that said yes to whatever, without having something either in writing or something kind of done. I do a lot of things in good faith. I give people the benefit of the doubt, and it screws me more often than not. And you can say, well, it's, you're a good person, don't you, it's their fault for doing this, or it is, but it's also my fault for not doing my due diligence to ensure a positive outcome or a fair outcome for myself. It's one of those things where there's two ways to look at it, and there is virtue and value in both ways. So I'm not one of these people that's going to say, oh, this is stupid or that's stupid, because it can be both at the same time. It's like loving yourself, or gosh, I just lost the term. It's like body positivity, or something, or something along those lines. They can say, well, you need to learn to accept yourself and love yourself. But if you are unhappy with something about yourself that you can change, then that's stupid. But if you're unhappy with something about yourself that you can't change, say being a freckled ginger, you have to learn to accept that and get along with it. So some people say, oh, that body positivity stuff is crap. It's like, well, but there are some people that have things about themselves that they can't change, that you have to learn to get along with, live with, accept, whatever else. But again, on the other side of it, if you have things about yourself that you don't like that you can change, just trying to learn to accept or get along with those, that's a crock. So you have to see things from both sides. There's merit in several different arguments. So when I think back to, again, the getting into the taking over the pro shop in 2014, 2015, whenever I got screwed on my salary. I got screwed on my bonuses. We almost went bankrupt. And I just kept putting in the work, thinking, okay, well, I'm going to get this. I'm going to, I know that I can do this. I, shot our, income through the revenue. I shot the revenue way up through the roof. At the same time I increased the revenue, I also increased the, gosh, I just can't think of anything today. Profit margin. The income, the revenue went up at the same time as the profit margin did at the same time. And I really never saw anything from it. There was once where, we were eligible, or I was eligible for a bonus at the end of the year, and it was based off of a certain number. Well, that number was always changed. And there was one year where I didn't get my bonus target for the year until after the first quarter was over, so that he could kind of get an estimate of what number he wanted to give me, so that he, didn't have to pay as much out in bonus as he should have. And so I can look at that from several different ways, because I worked for him for a couple of years before I took the shop over. I worked the shop for 3 or 4 years. I saw the signs, I saw the writing on the wall the whole time. I saw the signs, and I'm just thinking, okay, well, I can outwork it. I can prove my value. I'll just work harder. I'll just do this. I'll just do that. And so again, you can say, well, sure, he took advantage of you. Sure, you can be bitter about it. You can be pissy about it. And on the other hand, I can say, I agreed to this. I agreed to this salary in the first place. There was no promise of anything more. There was nothing on paper that said exactly what the bonus target was. It just, I was going off of what it had historically been. There was nothing in writing saying this is what the bonus target is. This is what, this is going to be, this is what this is going to be, whatever else. None of that was in writing. None of that was down anywhere. I was giving the benefit of the doubt. I was doing my side in good faith, and I got taken advantage of. However, I had a good feeling that I was probably going to be taken advantage of. And when you get those feelings, and now I've had it happen several, and especially within the bowling industry, is that they take advantage of people's desire to be involved, or to work in a pro shop, to work in a bowling alley, to get, to be a staffer, to be whatever else. They take advantage of people's desire to be involved and then compensate them very poorly. Or they compensate them like it's like bowling as a whole is a rewards program, which works out infinitely better for the business than it does for the individual. So this is part of what I was talking about, when I started the show, about some people just being bitter and pissy and wanting to see the whole thing burn down so that they can prove to somebody that they were right, or they want to see something corrupt or something bad burned to the ground. But at the same time, you don't get so invested or involved in something that you want to see fail. So it's hard looking at something and seeing, like Matt just said, you see people get screwed over and over and over again, and you try to warn them, you try to tell them, but some things just don't change, and some people are willing to get screwed over because either their time, or they might have an abundance of time and money, and the experience to them is worth that. It's just about like Reno this year, which will probably be the last time that I go to Reno, just hearing the prices and whatever else. And there was a friend of ours that just went, Colin. I think Colin's still down there now. He just bowled today, something like that. But there was a friend of ours that was from Vegas, and he's like, dude, it was miserable. He's like, there's nothing to eat there. There's nothing to do there. And coming from Vegas, he knows how to. It's not like, to me, it's still a little bit special because I don't live in that kind of thing. And so going to Reno is still cool enough. I like a couple days of casino living and the bowling stadium, whatever else. But beers are $15 a piece for like a Coors Light tall boy or whatever. It's $15. Like, this is more than stadium prices. Like, I can go to a football game or a baseball game and get a shitty beer for cheaper than that. Mixed drinks start at like $12. Hot dogs are $8, and so I'm like, okay, well, I'm just not drinking or eating anything at the stadium this year. And then everybody else, the Saturday night room rate, we're staying at Silver Legacy, the Saturday night room rate is $250. Everybody's talking about how miserably expensive it is, but it's also Reno. It's not Vegas. Vegas, and this guy from Vegas, he said, dude, it's just, there's nothing to eat. Everything's ridiculously expensive. From somebody from Vegas, if he's saying it's expensive, it's freaking expensive. And he said, yeah, he said, I just didn't have a lot of fun. And so I'm thinking, okay, well, it's one thing if you are expensive and deliver on it. Like, there's, when we were in Colorado a couple weeks ago, a friend of ours took us to a ritzy steakhouse, and it was worth it. I've paid, there's been a couple times where I paid $50 for a steak, and there was one time in particular in Springfield a few years ago where it was expensive, and we paid for it, but my God, it was good. And in the bowling industry, they don't tend to deliver that experience. Like, if it is time consuming, or it is expensive, or it is involved, or whatever else, they do not give that experience back to you. That's the problem that the bowling industry has, and that's why I don't bowl at our centers here in town anymore. That's why I drive, Royal Crest, where we film at. It's a 35-mile drive east, or it's a 35-minute drive. Whereas we have bowling centers right here in town that are 15, 20 minutes away. But I don't have anything to do with those centers anymore because they overcharge, they underdeliver. They cut corners wherever they can. They underpay their staff. They understaff their staff. And they have understaffed issues because they don't pay their staff. and you think, okay, it's a bowling job, whatever else. But if they had some kind of quality to go along with it, or if they actually, some jobs just don't pay a whole lot. But if they actually supported their employees, helped them out, trained them, taught them stuff, it wouldn't be a miserable experience for them. It wouldn't be a miserable experience for the customers. But they know that bowlers, for some whatever reason, they're going to complain, they're going to whine, but they're still going to do it. So all the people that that was one of those things is a couple years ago, I made one step towards removing myself from that situation. So I quit the pro shop. I gave the guy several years and I still felt bad about it because, when you have a pro shop operator, it's not something that's that easy to replace because it's not like you have a group of employees doing something, you lose one, you fill somebody else in. When you're at a pro shop, you're the guy. And as soon as the guy leaves, you've got to find a different guy or a different girl or a different, person, whatever. One person leaves, you have to find a different person. And so that kind of puts things in limbo. It's not exactly easy to find pro shop people. There's some industries where it's not easy to find replacement people. But I'd given him everything. I didn't get my other job until it was the end of bowling season. I waited basically until May to get a job and said, hey, sorry, but it's going to be over the summer. Things will be slow, whatever else. It's not like I was quitting in August or something. And I said, you know what, we can't do this because my wife was working part-time at the center too. They were underpaying her for that too. And I'm like, well, I just can't do this anymore. And then I continued to be kind of part-time, continued to bowl in the centers, ran some tournaments for them. Those expectedly went just as poorly as everything else did. And eventually I said, you know what, I've given this city, I've given these people enough time, enough chances. I was on the board, part-time in the pro shop, bowled a couple leagues a week, did lane certification. I would make special appointments for people that still wanted me to be their pro shop guy. I'd go in on Sundays and meet people there at 6 o'clock on Sunday afternoon or Sunday evening because they still wanted me to be their pro shop guy. And I did all kinds of things. And finally I got down to it. And I'm like, well, we're in the middle of COVID, 2020, September of 2020, and I'm still getting served beer. I'm getting served beer in glasses that have 2 other sets of lip prints on them still. And $7, $8 at that. Lineage keeps going up, which it has to. Bowling's expensive. That's fine. But you can't get any pins on spot. You got crap all over the approaches. You have a different bartender every week. Whatever else, just a absolute shit, miserable experience all the way around. And I finally said, you know what? I'm done with giving people chance. I'm done with doing my part. And that can be seen as negative. And of course, everybody asks, well, why don't you bowl here anymore or whatever? And I just tell them the straight up God's honest truth. But I don't find that to be negative. I find that to be putting yourself in a position to be more positive. To become positive, you have to identify and address the negatives. You just have to. And it's just like my example about our friends that are bodybuilders. They do a lot of inherently negative things or that aren't positive in that very moment, in that they don't eat what they want ever. They're constantly working themselves to the point of exhaustion. One of them's got several jobs. She's she works out, trains, whatever else. She's got a couple kids to take care of. Her husband got in a bad car crash. He's a bodybuilder too, but he got in a bad car crash about a year and a half ago. And he's had some issues because it put pressure on his spinal cord or something like that. And so he's had a couple surgeries. And so she's had to work part-time and still be a bodybuilder and still raise kids and whatever else. But she has her eyes on the prize. She always has a smile on her face. She's got a ton of energy. She's always super happy. And I'm like, good God, I would be miserable in that kind of a situation. But she is looking at what's ahead, not what's right now. And I think that is my issue with being happy in a negative situation. because I focus too much on what's going on right now rather than what's going on or what I'm looking forward to. I tend to get mired down and you know what, I'm working really hard. I'm putting in a bunch of effort and a bunch of care and stuff is not working out for me right now. But the way that you can look at this is that you can, anytime you have a bad coworker, you can thank them for showing you how not to be a bad coworker. Anytime you have a bad employer, you can thank them for showing you what to look for in a future employer. So any situation that you get into is experience. That also ties into the whole lefty thing of sometimes it's just not your day. Sometimes you show up, you're going to be blocked out. You have to learn, you have to get experience so that you can use, so that next time you're in a situation like that, you can either succeed at it or you can prevent something negative from happening. And so as you have these negative situations, as long as you are focused on the end goal, as long as you are focused on something or have a goal, instead of just saying, you know what, I'm going to be a good person, I'm going to work hard and it's all going to work out. That stuff doesn't happen like that. So let me catch up with there was a couple good comments in here that I want to keep up with. So,
what?
Giving as little as possible is the whole generation's motto, and that's where the opposite way. Or that's what comes from feeling like you're being taken advantage of, or going the negative direction off of feeling like you're being taken advantage of or used or whatever else. It's like, okay, I'm just going to sit down and quit. You know what? I'm just going to. It's like the Homer Simpson quote about, I'm not going to quit. I'm going to go into work. I'm just going to do it really half-assed because that's the American way. And I think that's kind of where that comes from. You just set boundaries and only allow what you want or like to happen. I always tell my wife all the time, I'm like, well, I don't have a choice. I don't have a choice. You know, if I felt like I had a choice, then I would do something about it. But no matter what decision I make, I'm screwing myself one certain way or the other. However, you might instantly, very infrequently do you have a clear cut, if you make this choice, this is going to be bad. Or if you make this choice right now, things are going to improve. Things are going to be great. Things are going to dramatically improve. You have a lot of catch-22 seeming choices where you're like, well, I don't like either of these choices. I don't like either of them. But you have to end up making the choice that you think that you can live with. There was something we watch Big Bang Theory a lot, and somebody, if you say, well, I can't, or no, we were at, James actually brought this up when we were in Wichita, and we were eating on Sunday, and one of the guys that we were with said, well, you know, I don't know which dessert to get. I want to get this one or this one. And James is like, okay, well, flip a coin and, you know, see if you feel disappointed in the result. So maybe you're not able to choose, but you might be leaning one certain direction. He's like, well, you know, if you flip a coin, just leave it up to chance. I'll be okay with both of them. If you flip a coin and then you're inherently disappointed or excited by the outcome, that means that you did have a choice that was better than the other one. And so that's, you know, for anybody that's a fan of the Last Kingdom, the Last Kingdom show, throughout the entire thing, Uhtred was put in a bunch of situations where it's like, you know what, that he basically got forced into making certain choices repeatedly, but he still made the choice that was going to be either, you know, sometimes you might have a lesser of two evils choice and feel like you don't really have any choice. You do, and it may not be beneficial now, but it might, that and a series of other choices like it might gradually step your way up into being something positive eventually. Even, or if you do make bad choices, like I have made several bad choices, but they've taught me a lot. I think that even though I feel like, well, I mean, I'm 40 now, and I've made a series of bad choices. It doesn't feel like it's gotten me anywhere, but it's taught me a bunch. I have a bunch of ridiculously awesome people around me now that I fail to acknowledge enough. However, sometimes you end up getting some things and wish that you hadn't had to pay so much for them. Like, just say that you know, just say that, you bought something for like 200 bucks, and then 2 weeks later it went on sale for 150. And it's just like, well, gosh, damn. And somebody might say, well, I mean, are you not happy with it though? It's like, no, I like it. I just wish I wouldn't have paid that much. Hey, off. Bad. Bad. Husky. Woof. And it's like, no, I'm happy with what I got. I just wish I wouldn't have, I just wish I would have waited a couple weeks, or I wish I'd have known it was going on sale, or I wish I hadn't have paid so much for it. And some of these things that I have right now, it's great, but I wish I hadn't have paid so much for it. However, you still don't know when you're in the middle of a situation what the entire total outcome is going to be. I've met a bunch of people. I've got a bunch of crazy awesome people that are in my Discord community now that know a whole lot more than I am, and they say that that's something that, if you're not afraid to surround yourself with smarter people than you are, then that shows some kind of humility or some crap like that. But I think that I have gotten more than I've actually put in, or for all the times I've been screwed over, taken advantage of, whatever. I think I've ultimately got more than I put in right now. I just haven't realized it yet, or it hasn't come to fruition yet, or whatever. I think that if there's an actual situation where I need something, I've got all kinds of people. I mean, these people bought me a frickin' computer because I was having issues editing on the other one. So even though it's a tool to use in a certain situation that I'm really not happy to be in, that I'm quite frustrated with, it's a tool that made that situation infinitely better. And without these people, without having put in the work, without having done all this stuff and getting taken advantage of, screwed over, whatever, I wouldn't have these people to help me through it. And so that's something that I don't thank them near enough. I'm in my feelings a little bit too much. But that's kind of another thing that I'll get into in a minute as soon as I catch up with these, some of the, in terms of business, always get everything in writing. I have learned that. Learned it the hard way, but I learned it. Yep, Colin can relate to this. Get paid $5 an hour less to work in a shop, a job that I put vastly more effort into, more emotion than my full-time one. Yeah. Yep, Cardinals next week. We're going to be there. We're bowling the 10th and 11th, Monday and Tuesday. I keep wanting to say the 9th and the 10th, but it's 10th and 11th of April. So I'm leaving here in a week. So yeah, Cardinal, let me know how it goes. I've heard that teams, and we were talking about this on the breakdown pair the other day. I think that team and singles and doubles have flipped. Everybody's seeming to think that team is the more user-friendly one now, and that the singles and doubles shot is the tougher one. Yeah, Storm, 100% that was my last time in Reno. I don't care about my streak. Yeah, if this is indicative of what it be like, yeah, this is going to be my last time too, because I've already heard stories. I'm not even there yet. I've heard stuff, and they took out lane 81 from the stadium. They don't have the pro shop there anymore, and so it's not going to be a big deal with all the booths and stuff there. But if you go to a tournament in Reno now, I've been wanting to get a lesson from Jazz now forever, but this year we're going too early for him. We're going to be there like 3 or 4 days too early for him. Normally the last several years we've gone too late. So, Cardinal, I can't get the ball off my hand without 2 drinks. I think the hamsters, I have my mental hamsters have the endurance of Kenyan marathon runners, so I've got to get them suckers to slow down a little bit so I can stop overthinking everything. If you can make it to Vegas, hit up Brewery Row. It's like an old downtown Vegas, and there's 7 breweries all within walking. Oh yeah, well Vegas. We've got a great spot. One of our friends works at the Red Dwarf. Amazing, Chicago style. The deep dish, the Chicago deep dish, or no, the Detroit, not the Chicago. The Detroit style pizza they had, and the beers were amazing. So, yeah, apparently Reno is more expensive than Vegas, or at the very least, the bowling stadium is more expensive than South Point. Yeah, the problem with Reno is that honestly, outside of the row, yeah, Silver Legacy, Circus El Dorado, there isn't a ton to do. And with how often we're there, like I'm not a casino type person. What I want to do is I want to watch the bowling, and I want to put a couple bets in at the sports book, and have a giant buffet a couple times, and I'm good. So I'm pretty easy to make happy, but. Yeah, this is why I bowl in one house specifically. It's expensive to bowl in their league, but they pay their mechanics super comfortably, and their GSX machines never break down, blackout, whatever else. This center, one of the centers in town, also has GSX machines, and the pins are always horrifically off spot. There's always crap all over the approaches and the bowlers' areas, whatever else. It's just a piss poorly managed center, but they have a Bolero mindset. So, oh god, it skipped. Like everything else over the years, you'll pay more for worse service. Yes. Now, is this the person who put me in the headlock last September? Yes, this is Tina. Who was listening to Luke preach and mistook the Princess Bride quotes for Spaceballs. Do you think that your focus is more on self than on the situation as far as the bowling center thing? By that I mean the wages go up, costs go up. And this is the thing. This is what you have to stop and think about, because there are people that will say, you know what, you need to be fulfilled. You need to work hard and get paid what you're worth and whatever else. But there are some situations where the job just does not pay that much. You might be extremely valuable in that job, but the job just may not pay what you're worth. Sometimes in business, there's just some things you just can't get there, where you either need more money, you want more money, or you just have to have, or you feel like you're worth more money than they're willing to pay, but at the same time, they don't need your level of skill, knowledge, expertise, or whatever else. Or, it's like, well, we have other people that can do the job adequately that will accept a much lower wage. Or you get into something where I have something to sell, you want to buy it, but I want more than you want to pay for it. Sometimes they just don't come together. And you can't be mad. It's like, gosh, this guy wanted a frickin' mint for something. It's like, I really want it. It's just like some of the bowling ball stuff. It's like, gosh, I'm trying to find this ball to be the last one of my collection, or whatever, and this guy wants $1 million for it. And it's like, well, he has it. It's rare. He knows it's rare. He has a price in mind. You don't want to pay that, obviously, but he doesn't want to let it go for cheaper than what he thinks he can get for it. That's just a business thing. So there are certain situations. This is the thing, is I think that it is part of the same thing. The bowling industry, there's not a whole lot of money to go around. That's why you see a lot of people that could be bowling professionally that are doing other things, or people that were bowling professionally and were really good at it. Mike Fagan, for example, he making a lot more money not bowling. And so it's one of those things where he can justifiably complain about it all he wants, but the fact of the matter is there just isn't the money there. He might be worth more money than what he's getting out of it, or, the professional bowlers put every bit as much time investment into bowling as other professionals do into other sports, but other sports that are more popular get paid more. That's just the way that it goes. So you can be miserable and bitter about it, or what I've found out is that when you tend to take something you really love and make it work, it's not fun anymore. It's not a hobby anymore. And so I've found out that by not hitting the YouTube thing so hard the last several weeks, my temperament has gradually improved. Like, I actually had fun practicing in Denver when we were there a couple weeks ago, despite not really scoring that great or really succeeding at Southwest, I had fun at Southwest. I didn't blow up or lose my cool for the first time in a long time. But that's because I've actually, instead of just nose to the grindstone and just work, 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 go, 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 do this, do that, whatever, instead of not burdening myself with doing bowling stuff every free solitary second, when I am doing some bowling stuff, now it's starting to kind of get fun again. And I think that you could probably even notice just in this live stream versus just the last rabbit trails, where I was complaining a lot more. Today I feel like I'm discussing a lot more. I'm looking, and instead of saying, well, I'm objective and I look at things from both sides, normally I tend to piss, moan, and complain. That's my MO. And I say, well, this is for positivity, or this is for positive reasons, or whatever else. Hi, buddy. Most of the time I just piss, moan, and complain, and I'm a completely miserable person. I think even today I've made improvement. Hi, buddy. I know. Why don't you go lay down? I know it's a nice day, buddy. I do. So wages and costs and things go up, but my biggest thing, let me catch up with the questions, but I do want to focus on this because wages, as wages go up, costs go up, and everything else, the problem is that the things that don't cost money are effort and care. And the centers here don't have it. They are looking to put money in the cash register by, again, overpricing, under-delivering. And when I was in the pro shop, my prices were higher than everybody else around there, but I humped my ass off to make it worth those prices. I was charging more, but I was also, in my opinion, I was making sure I was worth a lot more. It's different when you're just charging more for the same old shit, or for lower quality, less care, less effort, whatever else. That's the thing, is that some of these businesses that fail don't understand, especially in the bowling industry. They still, for some reason, don't understand that you just can't open the doors and expect people to walk in. And when they do come in and they take a time warp back to 1985, and they get the level of effort and service from 1985, which is, in some cases it's good, in some cases it's archaic. If you happen to get the right person back in that time. But it was also the, don't be a sissy and whatever else. So here you go. And here's the thing, is why I can't be too mad. Again, I've been a mechanic, lane man, ball driller. They don't pay a living wage. Exactly. You can complain about it. I can complain about it and say, yeah, it just, I deserve to get paid more. I did whatever else. But I still accepted that salary. I still put myself in that situation. I share some responsibility, if not the majority of the responsibility. So just because somebody offers to treat you like shit doesn't mean you have to accept being treated like shit. Sometimes you've got to take some, and you can be bitter and pissed off and whatever else. And then, you get back into that whole thing where I was talking about the victim blaming earlier. Sometimes you're not a victim. If you willingly and knowingly put yourself in a situation where there's a high probability that you're going to get screwed, you're not a victim. Whoever did the wrong to you is still at fault for doing it to you in the first place. It should be something to where you should be able to do, just as long as you're not hurting anybody or whatever else, you should be able to take you should be able to take a jog at any neighborhood in the country, on the planet, at 2 a.m. by yourself and be fine. You should be able to, but it's not a good idea. And so you have to walk a fine line between saying, you know what, yeah, what they did to you isn't right, but you also have to have some personal responsibility at the same time. And some people are in one camp or the other. They're just like, well, that's victim blaming. You can't do that because that person shouldn't have done it. And then, there's other people that just saying, well, you're a dumbass for even thinking you could do that or whatever else. They're both right, though, is the thing, So you can't just hop on one boat or the other. So you know, but how you handle something negative, even if you are a victim of something, and that obviously that happens, people are just did nothing to deserve what happened to them. They are literally victims. But once that is over with, once that situation is over with, how you choose to go forward or how you choose to handle it determines whether or not that will become a learning experience and a positive if you're still around. I mean, sometimes people are really victims of things that they can't bounce back from. I'm talking about in regular general situations that are not life, death, super dire. In most situations that people deal with and are becoming increasingly more sensitive to now, how you handle that determines whether or not you then become a perpetrator yourself, because some people will have something bad happen to them and then that's their whole life from there on out. They drag other people into it, and I've done this myself, so I'm speaking from experience. If you have something negative happen to you and you drag everybody else down with it, now you're transferring your trauma to them. Now they're the victim of your bullshit. You shouldn't do that. You should be able to learn from it, improve yourself, because ultimately you're the one in control of where you go from there. And the longer you are bitter and pissy about something, the longer you allow that person to make you a victim. Instead of taking control of it and saying, instead of, like I said earlier, if you have a bad coworker, that shows you how not to be to somebody else. You shouldn't then in turn treat somebody else like shit because you were treated that way. So instead of becoming what happened to you, you can use that as experience to say, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to treat somebody else that way. I don't want to be looked at as this. I don't want to be this. I don't want to be a negative dragging, a negative thing dragging somebody else down with me. I want to resolve to not be this. I want to be the opposite of this. Thank you, buddy. I understand. Yeah. What you're describing is what my brother and I call the idiot tax, where you spend money and it immediately goes on sale. Yeah. Yeah, what I believe you're describing is exactly what choosing positivity is all about. Shit happens, it did, and whether or not you believe in some type of higher plan or power, it got you where you are. And so that's exactly the thing, is you don't have, the positivity is not about your current situation necessarily. It's about where you're going to use your current situation to get yourself to. Sometimes, some people either, it's like a pearl or whatever. They say that extreme, pressure and whatever else creates a pearl. It's an irritation to a clam or whatever, oyster, and it turns into a pearl. You can either use rock bottom as something to, splat on, or you can use it as a trampoline. And so, some people are not aware that rock bottom may not be rock at all. It may actually be a frickin' trampoline. Sometimes you need to, if you're on a ledge and here's the bottom and you don't realize the bottom's a trampoline, you're going to scrape and claw and whatever else and just stay on that little ledge instead of saying, you know what, I've got to do this to, improve. So anything can be used that way if you just focus on positivity as the goal, instead of continuing to mire yourself in situations thinking, well, I'm going to outwork the situation, I'm going to out-positive the situation, I'm going to outdo this. Sometimes you have to say, okay, well, this is definitely not what I want to be in. I'm going to take what I've learned and I'm going to go do something else. Even if it is that catch-22 choice that gets you, even if it is that catch-22 choice where it's like, well, gosh, this is better from this standpoint, but it's worse from this one. It's like, or I could stay where I'm at and have the comfort of this, but also I hate this situation. And so you have to figure out, it's like, okay, well, I'm going to sacrifice something somewhere. but you have to go with a decision that gets you closer to the direction that you ultimately want to go. And sometimes you don't know where you're going to get to, but sometimes you got to do it. So, all right. Yeah, they removed the pro shop from the stadium. They do have the booths there still, but if you're bowling an event that is not nationals, if it's like the military championships or some other thing, there's no pro shop there, period, anymore. So they got rid of that. Yeah, Scott Norton's the same. He's a killer lawyer, and again, yeah, he was successful, but he's so much more stability. He's around more. He's got something that pays him a whole lot more, and he can enjoy bowling instead of hating it. Yeah, I get told every review cycle at work that I need to be more outwardly celebratory at work with my peeps. That's not who I am at all. It's genuinely fake when I do it, but that's what they want. Yeah, that's the thing, is that I'm that type of person. I'm like, well, if something's going on that's bad, we need to fix what's bad, and then we can all be happy. Like we can't just go around bouncing around acting like there's nothing wrong. But that's what some places want. Some places, well, we just don't want a negative work environment here. We want it to be about positivity and whatever else. It's like, well, there's not a whole lot to be positive about, so you just want everybody to go around faking it? Or they, again, like I said earlier, some places know that they have problems. They know that it's a bad situation, and the only way that they can keep people there is to gaslight them into faking it, drinking the Kool-Aid, so that they'll shut up or overlook all the problems. And then by the time you've figured out the game, then they've already gotten out of you what they wanted out of you, and then you get out of it, and then somebody else comes into so then you fall out of that. You remove yourself from that situation. Somebody else slides right into it, and they take advantage of them for another couple of years, and then they just kind of skip their way. They skip their way taking advantage of people for just the couple of years they can get out of them. So, all right. I think I've caught up with most things here, and I've gotten through most of my rant. But I think the thing that I have to work on in this is to not be so miserable so often. But I, again, put myself in these situations, and I think I'll just outwork them, or all out effort them, or whatever else. And all that really does is it just shows these people, it's like, well, gosh, I can treat him however I want to treat him, and he's still gonna do what we want him to do. So, and I did break away from a situation. Again, the situation with the bowling centers and the tournaments and the board and all that stuff in this town, and I've been infinitely better for it since, but I wasn't sure how it was going to go, because that's where the history was, that's where the foundation was. I didn't catch near as much flack for it, at least not to my face, that I thought. And it turns out that people do miss us being there, running the tournaments, or being in the pro shop, or doing whatever, and so it's not there's not an anger that we left and dumped everybody. It's kind of well, that sucks. So that's nice. But we've also found ourselves in an infinitely better situation where we're at now, with owners that are there every day, that care about their center, that put in the work and the effort and the care themselves. It turns out that you don't need to poorly pay somebody else to half-ass something if you're actually the one in there leading the charge. They have the same employees, by and large. I mean, 90%. We started going there, or we started really going there a whole lot more, I don't know, right around the COVID time, so about 3 years. 95% of the people that were there then are still there now. They love their jobs. They love working where they're working at. The center always takes care of us for everything. It's just so much better of a situation, and we weren't entirely sure about it. And it takes twice as long to get there as it does to any center here, but it's infinitely more worth it. And so it's one of those things that at the time, it seemed like a catch-22 choice where it's like, gosh, well, if we do this, then we're screwed here, and if we do this, then we're screwed this direction. But it ended up so much better than we could have ever expected. And so sometimes you have to make the choice that you feel is in your best interest, whether it seems like a step back, whether you're unsure, but you always kind of really know which direction you need to go, no matter what you have to sacrifice for it. Sometimes you have to make the best decision and go that direction and see what happens. And if it doesn't work, it's just like in bowling. They say, when you make a move or you make a ball change or whatever, you've got to commit to it. If it's the wrong decision, learn from it and move on. But you can't kind of you can't kind of stay in that limbo zone, because that's what I've done way too much because I didn't want to take the risk. Sometimes you have to take the risk, but the more you learn, the more experience you get, the more calculated the risk is. So, surrounding yourself with people that will always help you pull yourself back from negative situations, like I'm sure Angel does, is a huge blessing as well. Yeah, I have no idea where I'd be without her. I mean, I am a mess kind of on my own by myself, and while it's frustrating to have kind of been, hey, she herds me around quite a bit, but I need herding is kind of the point, because left to my own devices, I make good choices for me right now, or I make choices that will work for me right now. I didn't used to. I've gotten tired and bitter and negative, and so the choices I make right now are not choices that are going to help get me out of there. They're choices to kind of self-medicate for right now. I used to, and that's what got me in this situation in the first place, because I got out of high school, I got 3 jobs, I was working all the time, I was putting in every effort to work hard, to do the right thing, to try to get myself somewhere so that then I could relax. I wanted to put all the work in on the front end. There's nothing that, I was a yes man. You'd ask me to do it and I would do it. I was, working overnights at the same time I was going to school for heating and air and whatever else. And I thought, I'm going to get myself ahead. And then it just has never, I found myself being taken advantage of and used over and over and over and over and over again. And now I'm kind of to the point where it's just like, you know what? I just want a nap. I want a drink. I want a nap. I really want some dessert. And all that, none of that stuff obviously helps. It, kind of medicates me for the here and now, but it doesn't actually improve anything. It doesn't help me with anything. And hopefully I can get back to the point where I can just do what I need to do first. Whereas now it's like, well, I don't have the energy to do this right now. I'm going to go sit down and watch a show, or I'm going to sit down and take a nap. I'll get to that other stuff later. I don't have the energy. I don't have the motivation. I don't have the willpower, whatever else. But if you just sit and wallow in that forever, you're never going to have the motivation. I mean, sometimes you have to just get up. There's sometimes when you're laying in bed in the morning and it's like, gosh, I can't get up. I can't drag myself up. Where if you just force yourself to get up and then start getting in the middle of something, then all of a sudden you realize, oh, okay, I'm fine. I just needed to get the wheels moving. And sometimes that's all you need to do. You just need to get the wheels moving. You need to think in a positive direction rather than thinking, gosh, I'm really tired right now. I don't feel like this. You think instead, it's like, hey, buddy, it's like, hey, I really need to get this done, and I'm going to be in so much more of a pissy mood later if I sit down now, because when I get done, I'm still going to be tired, and then I'm going to still have to do what I had to do, and then I'm going to be in a time crunch to get it done, and it's just going to be misery. Instead of, you know what, let's do what I have to do. If I have time to sit down, if I have time for a nap, fine. But if I don't, at least I've got done what I needed to get done, instead of hanging out, not feeling any better, and then still having a bunch of crap to do later when I still don't have the motivation. Now I just don't have the motivation or the time. So I think that'll be my rant for the day. So hopefully you found this positive or entertaining at the very least. And part of this is a little bit of therapy for me, I guess, but part of it's just to, I've had plenty of, sometimes people don't want to just get on here and just dump everything out because they feel like they're burdening somebody else. But sometimes if you share your frustrations or you share your experiences or whatever else, somebody else might be going through something that you already went through. Somebody else may be able to learn something from it. Somebody else might find courage, motivation, whatever else from you just sharing all the problems. And again, that's why I follow some of the people I do, where even though you see some of the Instagram stuff, it's like, I struggled at a tournament, I was really bad with spares. Matt Gasson put something up on Facebook today. He shared a video of himself practicing. He was like, you know what, sometimes you got to visualize stuff, sometimes you just have weird things that don't work out, whatever else. And so he put a post up of him doing some shadow bowling, and then getting in. Looked like he was working on some timing or something. And it just got out of whack, and then his arm got all the way out here, and he just kind of had to let the ball go, and it kind of spun and went into the ditch or something like that. And he chuckled it off and moved on. So, but one thing that I am sick of, or one thing that really got through to me on one of the memes I saw earlier. I think no, it was the Chris Rock. It was the Chris Rock special where he said something about not being a victim, or he's not going to perpetuate something, or he talked about the Chris Rock, or not the Chris Rock, talked about the Will Smith thing. I think is when he was talking about that, and he said, everybody, how'd you not react? And you're this, that, and the other. And he's like, I'm not going to let that get me down. I'm not going to let that, I'm not going to let that ruin my day. I'm not going to let that ruin my life. I'm not going to let that whatever. And so I don't want to have something suck that happens to me and spread it around to everybody else so that they can feel it, so that stuff can suck for them too. Because if just because I might have it, but they definitely don't deserve secondhand suck. So, but at the same time, sometimes things have to suck a little bit, but as long as they're going in the positive direction, as long as, again, it's different, if you're, again, for the bodybuilding or whatever, they have to lift super heavy weights that are hard to lift, and lift them to the point of exhaustion so that they can then get gains. So, they might feel like a baby giraffe after a workout, but they do their recovery and they do whatever, and they're going to be stronger because of it. I don't want to share misery to other people. I want to use my past misery to help share motivation, or to share information, or maybe that something crappy that happened to me, I can warn somebody else, I can save somebody else from having it happen to them. Or if some people still will want to go through something, because there's nothing quite like a learning experience yourself. So yeah, I know. I had an angelism. She always has stuff coming out of her mouth that she doesn't realize is. But sometimes it's still best for people to go through something themselves. And sometimes people will still have to, like, it's like a training course or like a test or like whatever else. There's a lady that I work with that's going through a training class that I've been through. And, me and some of a couple of the other people in the office have been through. And so we were able to tell her what to expect. That didn't change that she still is going through it herself, but she had a better idea what to expect and how to handle it than we did going into it. And so that's what I hope to do, rather than, instead being negative and talking it down and whatever else. And there's some pretty good information. There's some fun stuff. It's, you know, there's some really boring stuff too, but there's some fun stuff there. But hopefully use it to motivate somebody to get through something and to get the best out of it, instead of make them dread it and even more miserable on their way through it. And I'm not entirely sure that I've been on the right side of that very often, especially with people closer to me or kind of more in my inner circle. I think I'm just a bundle of misery right now, and it's like, God, I don't, if I talk to him, it's just going to be, I know that if there's some people, it's like they know if they get a message from me, it's going to be some miserable whining shit. Because that's just all there is to, that's just all there is to send right now. But the other thing is too, I think people also have to realize that if they have pissed me off, or if they have actually upset me, rather than just, I mean, I think some people have gotten used to my pissy little moanings or rambling. It's like, I just let him get it out. Let him cry about it for a few minutes. He'll be fine. But I think if I do have an issue, if I do get legitimately upset, or if I blow up at them, it's probably their fault. Because I give people the benefit of the doubt so far that if I actually get upset at them, it's most likely their fault. But enough excuses and justification. I'm out of tea. I'm almost out of tea. We've actually made it through, I don't want to jinx this either, we've made it through a whole live stream without the camera turning off or having any technical issues, and I do have some stuff to do. So I'm going to get to that. Thanks everybody for watching. I appreciate it, and I do appreciate the donation from Bob earlier. Let me see. As far as housekeeping stuff, I'm going to go, I've got a couple of report cards to do that I've been putting off for a couple weeks. Supernova and the Night Road, I've got those report cards ready to do, and I'm going to do those live too. And so I'm going to try to do those this weekend, and I've got some other ones that I need to get to. And amazingly enough, we didn't have some other announcement right before the DNA and the Ruby release. So I had that stream last Friday talking about those two. Those are out. Got a couple videos on those. No new announcements as far as right now. They're actually giving these two balls a chance to breathe and get some attention, which they should. You know, anytime you release something like an IQ Ruby or another IQ, you definitely don't want to overshadow it or instantly move on to something else. So I think that giving those a chance to breathe is a good idea. So that'll be awesome. Probably do those over the weekend. Thanks, Jonathan. You too. Have fun in Wichita. I'm pretty sure my weekend's gonna involve some cleaning. However, I've been resting, relaxing a little bit more, so I've got more energy, more motivation to kind of do some stuff. So anyway, I'm going to stop rambling, and I'm going to say thanks everybody for hanging out. Report cards sometime this weekend, and I'll have some other stuff coming up, and then whenever we get information for some more stuff, we'll see. Don't know if I'm going to do one of these next week. We do have nationals coming up that I'm going to be leaving. I will be halfway to Reno at this point in 2 weeks. So, yeah. Hey, Luke, I'm 58, and I do truly believe doing the right thing will pay off in the end. I really think it will, too, because I've already had some proof of it, and I just don't think that I've had the kind of negative... I think that I've got an awful lot of people waiting in the wings in case something would happen, something negative would happen. It'd be like I hope it I hope it kind of comes out like the whole, if you've never seen the movie Mr. Holland's Opus, all this guy wanted to do is just write music, and he had to take some teaching job, and it was rough, and then he's all about music. His son's born deaf, and so it just seems like a kind of a miserable movie until he gets to the very end and the school decides to cut the arts funding or whatever, And so he never gets what he wants in the moment. He teaches for 30 years and then he gets let go. And so it's kind of like, well, this is awesome. But what happened in the movie, actually go watch the movie. I don't want to ruin it for you. But it's awesome. Yeah, my motto for the last 35 years is no good deed goes unpunished. I really think that if something were to happen, or if any time I were to need somebody, and it's already been, again, given with the computer and several other things, and either just knowledge, information, whatever else that has been, given. There's been a lot of things that they've given me that haven't necessarily been these big blockbuster things, but I really think that if something happened, I'd have so many people coming out of the woodwork to help out, and that's a great feeling to think about, and I don't focus on that stuff enough. So, all right, I'm at it. Yep, Francis, Mr. Holland's Opus was a fantastic movie. Yes, it was. I am actually leaving now, so thanks everybody. We will see you later. And the dogs really, really, really want to go outside, don't they? You want to go outside with me still? Yeah, I know. The excitement. See y'all.